Welcome to Daily Review, your daily dose of literary exploration. We dive into books that spark curiosity and ignite growth. While our passion often leads us to nonfiction reads that empower and improve your life, no book is off limits. From gripping thrillers to insightful memoirs and compelling fiction to historical accounts, we're here to share and discuss all the interesting reads we discover. Tune in for your next great book idea. Today, we're peeling back the curtain on an institution you probably think you know. We're digging into the chaotic, revolutionary, and frankly tumultuous history of National Public Radio, an organization that was literally born in protest and nearly died in debt.
So, let's dive right in. On May 3rd, 1971, this ad runs in the New York Times. It's making this huge promise, right? A radio revolution. But, the reality of NPR's birth, it wasn't some quiet, calculated launch. Oh no, it was pure, unadulterated chaos. You see, NPR's first ever broadcast didn't happen in some pristine, soundproof studio. Not even close. It was born right in the middle of a national crisis, with the actual sounds of protest bleeding right into the newsroom. Okay, just think about this for a second. Imagine the scene. You've got thousands of anti-war protesters trying to shut down the government over in Vietnam. And at the exact same time, this tiny, brand new network is trying to invent a completely new form of journalism, totally on the fly. And their big lead story? A massive documentary they were planning to turn around in just a few hours. Well, it wasn't even done when they went live. Yeah, the plan was to just be loose, spontaneous, in the moment. But when you don't have a script, or your lead story, the debut nearly fell apart just minutes after it started. The host, Robert Conley, actually started padding for time, telling listeners that RFK Stadium was, and I quote, named for Senator Robert F. Kennedy. It was a pretty desperate moment. But here's the thing. Even with all that chaos, what they pulled off was amazing. This wasn't just reading headlines. They were using the actual sounds from the street, the chants, the sirens, to tell a much deeper story with all these different viewpoints. It was a really radical idea, and it came straight from founder Bill Seymour's vision to create radio that gave you context, not just the facts.
So how did this big, bold experiment land? Well, the reaction from the people who mattered most, NPR's own station managers, was absolutely brutal. They hated it. It was messy, it was raw, and to them, it was just plain ugly. So yeah, the network's survival was anything but guaranteed.
So let's fast forward to 1983. The network's early creative struggles, they eventually gave way to a full-blown financial crisis that brought NPR to the absolute brink of extinction.
The network was $8.5 million in debt. I mean, they were on the verge of just disappearing. This number, $8.5 million, that's the massive bailout they needed just to keep the lights on. And believe me, that money was going to come with some serious strings attached. And this is where things get really interesting. This was a move that, for journalists, totally crosses a major ethical line. These three-star reporters, they were known as the Troika, they really believed the soul of NPR was at stake. So they started calling up the powerful politicians they were supposed to be covering, using their press contacts to become political players. It was a desperate bid to save the network's independence.
And the reality of this was, well, it was even more dire than it sounds. This wasn't just a problem on a balance sheet, it was a day-to-day struggle for basic survival and honestly dignity. Can you imagine working for a national news network and having to send an assistant across the street to literally beg your competitor for toilet paper?
Okay, so coming out of that near-death experience, NPR desperately needed to prove its value to the nation. And its defining moment? It came during one of the biggest political scandals in American history. Now, here's why NPR's coverage was such a game changer. While the major TV networks were cutting away for commercials or other shows, NPR just stayed. They aired everything, gavel to gavel. And by having their correspondent, Josh Darsa, as the only reporter broadcasting live from inside the room, they brought this whole new level of immediacy and insight to the radio audience. It was captivating.
And what do you know? The critics finally took notice. The Watergate coverage completely cemented NPR's reputation. That so-called ugly child had finally grown up, proving itself to be a serious, essential journalistic force in American media. So where did that whole turbulent journey lead? Well, let's take a look at the powerful and polished institution that NPR has become today.
It's pretty fascinating, right? You contrast that scrappy, radical vision of NPR's founders with what it is today. The original goal was to be adventurous, to sound completely different from everything else on the dial. Now, it's a media giant with celebrity hosts and a very established, familiar sound that, as multiple analyses have shown, has really cultivated a listenership that skews heavily progressive.
So, the NPR we hear today, it wasn't inevitable. It wasn't born fully formed. It was forged through chaos, through financial near collapse, and through journalistic fire, constantly fighting for its own survival and its own soul.
And that whole journey leaves us with a pretty provocative question for today. The original mission was to be this unique voice in the wilderness. But in a world that is saturated with podcasts, cable news, and just endless content, does it still sound different? It's something to think about the next time you tune in. Thank you so much for tuning in to Daily Review. We truly appreciate you joining us for your daily dose of literary exploration. Your support means the world to us and helps us continue to share these amazing books with you. If you're enjoying what you hear, please consider taking a moment to subscribe, rate, like, and comment on any of the platforms you're listening from. This really helps support our channel and allows us to get better and bring you even more great content. If today's review sparked your interest and you're ready to dive into a copy of the book, please consider using the link in our description to make your purchase. Not only does it make it easy for you to get your hands on the book, but it also directly supports our channel and the author, allowing us to keep bringing you more great content. Thanks again for being a part of the Daily Review community.